Once upon a time, in the quaint town of Maplewood, lived a small girl named Betty. Betty had curly hair that bounced as she skipped along the cobbled streets, and her eyes sparkled with curiosity. Betty's best friend wasn't another child, but a clever little mouse named Whiskers. Whiskers was no ordinary mouse. He had a knack for playing tricks and uncovering the town's secrets. Every evening, after dinner, Betty would sit by her window and wait for Whiskers. Right on cue, Whiskers would scamper up the vine that climbed her house and hop onto the windowsill. One warm summer night, as fireflies danced in the twilight, Betty asked, "Whiskers, what secret have you discovered today?" Whiskers twitched his whiskers and stood on his hind legs. "I have a wonderful secret about Mr. Jenkins, the baker," he whispered. Betty leaned in closer, her eyes wide with anticipation. "Mr. Jenkins is planning a surprise for the town's anniversary," Whiskers continued. "He's going to bake the biggest cake Maplewood has ever seen. It's going to be 10 layers high and decorated with sugar flowers and chocolate leaves." Betty clapped her hands in delight. "Oh, Whiskers, that sounds amazing! I can't wait to see it!" The next day, as Betty walked to school, she couldn't help but giggle at the thought of the enormous cake. She promised herself she would keep Whiskers' secret, for she didn't want to spoil Mr. Jenkins's surprise. After school, Betty met Whiskers again. This time, Whiskers had a playful glint in his eye. "How about a little trick today?" he suggested. Betty loved Whiskers' tricks. They were always harmless and fun. "What do you have in mind?" she asked. Whiskers led Betty to the town square, where a big fountain stood. "Let's make the fountain water colorful," he said with a wink. Betty's eyes sparkled with excitement. "But how will we do that?" Whiskers pulled out a small pouch filled with colored powders. "These are magic powders," he explained. "Just a pinch of each will turn the water into a rainbow." Betty and Whiskers carefully sprinkled the powders into the fountain. As the powders dissolved, the water turned a brilliant array of colors: red, blue, yellow, green, and purple. The townsfolk gasped in amazement, and children ran to the fountain, laughing and splashing in the colorful water. "It's beautiful, Whiskers!" Betty exclaimed, watching the joyful scene. Whiskers twitched his nose happily. Sometimes, a little color is all you need to brighten up the day. As the days passed, Whiskers continued to share secrets and play tricks with Betty. One evening, he brought news of Mrs. Thompson, the kind old lady who lived alone at the end of the street. "Mrs. Thompson has been secretly knitting scarves for all the children in town," Whiskers revealed. "She's planning to give them out at the winter festival." Betty felt a warm glow in her heart. "That's so sweet of her. We should do something nice for Mrs. Thompson." Together, Betty and Whiskers gathered wildflowers from the meadow and made a beautiful bouquet. They left it on Mrs. Thompson's doorstep with a note that read, "Thank you for your kindness. From your secret friends." That night, as Betty lay in bed, she thought about all the secrets and tricks Whiskers had shared with her. She realized that the best part wasn't the secrets or the tricks themselves, but the joy and kindness they brought to the people of Maplewood. "Good night, Whiskers," she whispered, smiling to herself. "Thank you for being the best friend ever." And from the corner of her room, Whiskers gave a tiny, satisfied squeak. Betty knew that their adventures were far from over, and she couldn't wait to see what wonderful secrets and playful tricks the clever little mouse would bring next.